All right, wanted to do a quick little yap video here about some PoE 2 stuff while trying not to contribute too much to the massive flood of nonsense of PoE 2 spam on YouTube right now. But figured I'd do something and want to talk about like gear, endgame gear stuff, kind of where I think it's going to be in PoE 2 and kind of how it compares, I guess, to PoE 1. And I've got a couple of screenshots from like the reveal announcements and stuff to go with it, so it's not just me talking with nothing else. But it's gonna be pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Just kind of my thoughts of how I think Endgame gear is gonna play out. So starting off like early Endgame, when we're first getting to maps and all that, I think it's gonna be quite similar to PoE 1, where you're just using what you find. You need to satisfy your bare minimum requirements. You need your resists probably capped. You need attributes to whatever they need to be to use your gear and your gems and all that, whatever. That's going to play out very similarly. There's a little bit of a difference in how the like friction of being able to upgrade gear is going to work in PoE 2 versus PoE 1. In PoE 1, you could very realistically in early endgame run into issues of like gem socket space things, which is like a huge focus of PoE 2 to fix, and especially for like body armors in particular, where you'd have a 5 or a 6 link. But even before that, like a 4 link in PoE 1, if you're in early maps, was hard to replace with another. So you get a better helmet, but your current helmet's a 4 link. But it's like not that much better than your current helmet. It might literally not be worth the jewelers, the fusings, the chromatic orbs to be able to use it. And in PoE 2, that's gone because gems are just completely untied from gear, right? But there's kind of a new layer of friction there, which is the runes. And runes have been kind of described as the replacement to the crafting bench in a way, in terms of like filling out gaps in your character to help you fine tune what you need, what you're missing. But there's a key difference on runes versus the crafting bench from PoE 1, which is probably the one thing I'm a little bit concerned about from gear for endgame. It'll maybe be okay. We'll see. Have to Can't say anything for sure until we've played it. But you can see it in these descriptions here. Place into an empty socket on equipment items. Once socketed, it cannot be removed. Now, the sockets themselves, we don't know how rare they're going to be, how hard it's going to be to get the currency to add sockets, whatever. Not going to even begin to speculate on that. But basically, once you put a rune into a socket, that rune is in there. You cannot remove it, you cannot replace it. So, like, if you put cold res into a socket on your boots, and then you get some other upgrade, and now you're overcapped on cold res, but you need fire res. You can't take that rune out. It cannot be removed, and it only can be put into an empty socket. So you cannot suddenly switch from cold to fire like you could in PoE 1 with the crafting bench, which might cause issues. We'll see. Um, Maybe sockets are rare enough, maybe runes are rare enough that like you're not even really considering it anyway. Well, again, we don't know for sure, but we will see. A little bit concerned about that. But that's kind of I think the one bit of early end game stuff that I wanted to touch on, and then most of this is going to be about like further into end game and kind of min maxing, which I am actually completely assuming. I think that getting like pretty good rares in endgame and PoE 2 is not going to be very hard. And when I say pretty good, I mean like 4 stats, maybe 5 stats of like high tier, good stats. So like life, tri res, life, dual res, armor, whatever, that type of stuff. From what we've seen, I do think it's not going to be that hard to get, and a lot of it's actually hopefully going to be from like just straight up drops. But in addition to drops, we have things like essences, which will help target a bit for crafting from scratch, probably, or from a magic base. I don't know if we'll be picking up magic bases. We'll see, but maybe you're picking up a white base and starting from scratch. We have the meta mod stuff, which is completely untied from something like divine orbs. So it's not serving dual purposes. You just use the meta crafting omens for meta crafting. So they have that only is their value. And then we have also like ROG. We've seen an example of ROG crafting in one of the teasers where it looked pretty similar to PoE 1. And all those combined, I think getting pretty good rares is not going to be very hard. This is like probably my one main big assumption here, I think. But you have to remember that So far, what we've seen in PoE 2, it's pretty base bone rares. Like, it's kind of like having an uninfluenced item in PoE 1. There's more that we get to do afterwards that I'm about to talk about, but like just getting the rare itself, there's not a lot of crazy stuff going on. There's not influence mods, there's not synthesized items. Don't think there's fractured bases or anything like that. Any of those shenanigans. But so we get those gears, and I think it's going to be pretty easy. But then that's kind of where like the min maxing starts, not like, oh, I got my 5-6 mod item, I'm done. That's kind of like almost the starting point of the actual min maxing, which is really heavily going to play around corruption. So like vol orbs they've showed off, and they talked about it quite a bit. So like I think that they were showing that there's a pretty big focus to it. But corrupting gear will be a pretty big role in this, and I think a lot of people's min maxing of characters, you're going to end up with like every single piece of gear you're wearing. Maybe not jewelry. We don't really know what jewelry does. Maybe not like really big expensive uniques, but like everything else, you're going to be corrupting it, 100%, no doubt in my mind. And that's because we've seen things like you can add a socket, which looks like it'll be very powerful. You get implicits that are not actually implicits; they're kind of more like enchants. So if the item had an implicit, they'll maintain that as well, which I think is mostly important for like weapons. Um, but so you can see like this one example body armor, where body armors can get 2 sockets, but they corrupted it up to a 3rd socket. And if you look at the runes, it's like, okay, well, you added a socket, you can get 12 fire res or whatever. And there might be higher tier runes in this, we don't know. But what that really goes with is the soul cores, which is an end game kind of version of runes, and it's very clearly more powerful. So like this one says 15% Ellie pen for weapons, or martial weapons, which is like non-spell stuff, I guess. Weapon with spirit or rarity. We have one with crit bonus or crit reduction. We have one with some attack speed and then reduced slowing potency. Don't know. But you can see these are like pretty powerful mods, and they're also very fine-tuned mods where like these are probably the most similar comparison in PoE 1 would be to like getting your influenced mods where like, you know, everybody's gear you want like just generalizing life and some res and attributes and whatever. But then you also would get like influenced mods on top of that, or you know, you might have a synthesized base or whatever. And I think these soul cores are kind of filling up that role. And we'll see, there might even be more crazy ones that are rare. And I think they may have said that there was unique soul cores. Don't quote me 100% on that, but I think that's going to be a whole big thing. Maybe there's going to be some crazy implicits that you can corrupt as well. We know that if you corrupt unique items, it can actually like boost the magnitude of the stats on the unique item, which is also potentially super powerful. And I think that corruption, socket, soul core, all that shenanigans is where we're really going to see the min maxing. And it's a thing that I don't think would really work in PoE 1 because PoE 1 has the gems sockets tied to the gear. Like, you can't just expect the vast majority of endgame players to be chain corrupting their gear because it bricks it. You can't modify it anymore, which means you can't really customize your sockets for gems and all that. But with gems being decoupled, I think this could work really well, and I think it'll be really interesting. Where like it's kind of familiar, but it's different enough um, that it'll be a new way of exploring, and there will be a lot of theory crafting to be done, and kind of planning out the min max and how it all works. And yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be really cool. But I believe that about covers it. That's the end of my quick little slideshow here. Just kind of wanted to again talk about something. Thought it was interesting. I think Endgame Gearing looks to be in a pretty good spot for like a launch state, and I really hope that the chain corrupting feels satisfying, because I think we're going to be doing it a lot. But yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got. That's it. That's all. Thanks for watching. See ya.